The story begins with a pathetic middle-aged man who spends all his time and effort in defeating a basic Otome game simply because his little sister blackmailed him into doing it. He despises the game so much because it's based in a world where women have all the power and influence, but he has no choice but to continue with it unless he wants to get stitched on by his sister. After playing for the next few days non-stop, he finally defeats the game, so he can finally get back to his normal life. He feels a bit hungry, so he decides to go and get something to eat. But then, as he goes down the stairs, he accidentally misses his step and Stairs-kun claims a new victim. After this he wakes up to see a grass field and a younger body while wondering what has just happened. His name is Leon Fou Bartfort, and after some time in the field he runs into some people who recognize him and accuse him of running away. Leon is then taken to a shed where he meets his brother, who informs him that in this world all the men are treated like trash. It's only the women who have any power. Leon hears this and instantly realizes that he has been reincarnated into the world of the Otome game he has just completed. 10 years after regaining his memories, he acknowledges that he is a part of the Bartfort family, a family that didn't appear in the Otome game, which means that he is just a mere background character in this world. At a certain point, he had the idea of using his game knowledge to dominate, so he wrote everything he could remember down into a book with the hope of using it someday. But after a little while, he loses his initiative to dominate, so he wishes to live the rest of his life as a happy mob character. At this point in the story, we are introduced to Zola, a woman that Leon's father married simply to ensure the safety of their family. One afternoon, Zola calls Leon into her room and tells him that she has arranged a marriage between him and a crusty 50-year-old woman who has been married 7 times. That lady is the daughter of a court noble that their family owes a great debt, so Zola feels that she can compensate by letting one of her sons marry her. Leon hears this and refuses to marry her on his first instinct. However, Zola has a menacing look on her face when she tells Leon that he doesn't have a choice. She then goes on to tell him that it's either he marries her, or she arranges for him to become a soldier, which would be very bad because Leon will most likely get killed in his first battle. Naturally, he's supposed to be attending an academy by now, but their family doesn't have the money for it. So she feels that Leon marrying the 50-year-old noble would bring great fortune since she comes from a wealthy family. From Zola's tone, Leon can tell that she doesn't have any good intentions for him, so he knows that he has to do something here or else he will have no future. With money being the main constraint, he sets off on an adventure to gather enough wealth and power to gain independence from his family, and also avoid forced marriage. His goal is to reach a floating island where he knows of a hidden treasure from his knowledge of the Otome game, which would elevate his status and allow him to live freely without being controlled by his stepmother, Zola. He then takes his father's airship and heads straight for the island, but unfortunately he runs into a windstorm which destroys his father's airship and throws him on the ground. He wakes up and goes into the building to use his knowledge as a reincarnated player to navigate his way to the main control room. He enters inside and runs into a giant robot, which is nothing like the ones he has seen before. He attempts to use a magic grenade on it, but that doesn't seem to work. The robot picks him up and starts to squeeze him so tight that he begins to cough up blood. But just as he is about to be killed, he launches his sword right into the robot's face, which is just enough to defeat it. After this, Leon falls to the floor, and even in this poor physical condition, he limps over to the control panel and attempts to attain the airship that he had purchased while he was playing the game. On getting there, he is introduced to the AI robot named Luxion, who now takes Leon to be his new master. Leon acquires the ship, but then starts to feel dizzy due to blood loss, so he falls to the ground and starts to accept that he has died yet again. So begins to hope that he will be reincarnated into a world better than this one. Fortunately for him, before he dies, Luxion transports him to the sick bay to try and save him. 3 months later, the Bartfort family has started to accept that Leon has been gone for the past 3 months. Just then they hear giant aircraft outside, so they go outside to check it out. Leon is then seen standing on top of the aircraft with loads of money and treasure in the trunk, which can only mean that his escapade was successful. Having acquired a large amount of wealth, he declined Zola's marriage offer and began attending the academy just as he had originally planned. After leaving his home, luck continues to strike Leon, so he's been able to find an uninhabited island that would be suitable for a baron since he's an independent knight now. All he needs to do now is find a wife at the academy, and then he would be able to live an easy job character life as a backcountry baronet. Later that day, Leon is devastated to find out that his academy is granting him the title of baron, because despite being a mob character, he still went on to clear an unexplored dungeon and discover a new floating island. Although this is technically supposed to be good news, Leon is upset by this because if he is a baron, it means he would have to find a wife at the academy. The following day, Leon stands outside the school while observing the surroundings and acknowledges that it's exactly how it used to be in the game. For the next 3 years, this is where he'll be searching for a wife while he continues his studies, of course. He looks to his left and sees the other students going crazy over the noble prince and his friends as they walk by. To his left, he sees the rich girl antagonist named Angelica walking by with her friends. Leon holds a tiny grudge against her because she's always gotten in the way of his romances so many times, despite the several high-ranking individuals. Leon decides that he isn't going to be bothered by them and just live his life peacefully. As a side character, he walks past an alleyway to see a familiar scene from the game with a girl slapping the noble prince, but he finds this quite strange because it's supposed to be the female protagonist who does this. Later in the afternoon, Leon sits down with his 2 friends, Daniel and Raymond, who all plan to throw a tea party so that some girls would attend. They plan to make it as perfect as possible so that they won't be known as the 3 losers in their school that can't host parties. However, they don't seem to have much hope at this, especially because the prince also throwing a tea party which everyone is dying to attend. During this time, Leon observes a compulsory event, but he finds this one strange as well, because the protagonist is supposed to be the one protecting the prince. But in this case it's the other way around. Right before Leon's tea party, he sets a nice table with loads of food and also invites the daughter of a baron to come alone so he can impress her. Shortly after, it hears a knock on the door and is surprised to see that the baron's daughter has come along with 3 of her glutton friends. Rather than being impressed by Leon, they just come into the room to eat all the food he prepared, after which they all leave the party, upsetting Leon. After they leave, Leon looks out to the corridor to see a group of girls bullying the main protagonist Olivia, simply because she's a commoner who came to this school on a scholarship. Although he doesn't want to get involved with the story of the game, he can't help but invite her to his tea party since he feels so bad for her. She enters the party room and Leon is delighted to see that she appreciates all the delicious food he went out of his way to provide, unlike the Baron and her friends who came earlier. Olivia lets Leon know how hard it has been for her at the academy with all those girls bullying her. All she wants to do is study magic peacefully, but she doesn't know much about the unspoken rules and agreements of the academy. Leon hears her cry and takes her to his sister, who also goes to the academy. His sister advises Olivia to introduce herself to the most important girl in the class, Angelica, by first of all offering her some snacks from a popular shop. However, those are way too expensive for her to afford, so Leon offers to pay for it. Later that day, Olivia meets up with Angelica and has a conversation which ensures that she is now okay to be at the academy without any bullying. During their exploration class, all the students witness a small stature girl named Marie cozying up to the prince, which everyone finds strange because Angelica is the prince's fiancée. As things progressed, Leon doesn't think it would be a good idea for him to get any closer to Olivia because she is destined to become friends with the prince and his buddies. Shortly after they run into some bug monsters, Olivia immediately thinks to call for help, but Leon tells her not to worry, so he uses the sword that Luxion made for him to defeat the first wave. However, he gets injured along the lines. Just as the second wave of monsters arrives, the rest of the students get there and start to battle the rest of the monsters. It is rumored that members of the royal family are often very weak, so they believe that the prince wouldn't be able to defend himself. But to their surprise, he steps up and can defeat one of the monsters with a single strike. Following this, Leon observes Marie holding hands with the prince, so he starts to wonder why things are different from how it was in the game. A couple of days later, Leon and his friends are starting to lose hope of ever getting married because it has just been announced that a large set of rich guys have gotten engaged. During their conversation, Leon learns that Prince Julius has been involved in some trouble concerning the bullying that Marie is facing. He's also very pissed off at his fiancée Angelica because she is the one at the center of it. Leon hears this and recalls that the game featured an event in which Julius got angry at Angelica, but he was because it's not supposed to be happening this early in the story. Later, while Leon and Olivia are at the library, they start to discuss the topic of Marie being bullied. But during her conversation, Leon hears a strange noise coming from the rear of the bookshelves, so he and Olivia go to check it out. They go behind the bookshelf to see Marie kissing another member of the noble family. Leon doesn't like the look of this one bit because he knows that all their lives depend on who marries who. After that, Marie has a menacing look on her face while she acknowledges that the other girls have stopped bullying her ever since Julius became mad at them. after which she turns around and says that she's having a lot of fun in this Otome Game's world, which means that she has been reincarnated into this world just like Leon. Later that night, a public party is being held so Leon and his friends feel that this is their chance to finally get some girls. But as expected, they end up getting rejected by them all. After the three of them are beaten up by the girls' bodyguards, Olivia comes to call Leon saying it's an emergency. She takes him to the main ballroom where we see Marie holding hands with the same noble who she was seen kissing that day in the library. All the other nobles, including the prince, randomly start to confess their love for Marie. At this point, Angelica is really angry and confused as to why they are all in love with her all of a sudden. She gets so frustrated by this that she removes her glove and throws it at Marie, indicating that she's being challenged to a duel. Leon observes and recognizes this exact scene, which is the duel event. In the game, the character who had the highest relationship scored dueled in the protagonist's place. It's obvious that Marie is no match for Angelica, so the male nobles offer to fight for Marie in the duel, which makes Angelica lose all hope because there's no chance of her being beaten him. Even though Leon has promised himself to only engage in mob activities, he steps up and offers to fight for Angelica, even though he slightly despises her. But even with how much he dislikes her, he can't help but feel pity for her because he knows that if Marie wins, Angelica will end up marrying a backcountry lord with a terrible personality, meaning that she will have to live the rest of her life miserably. As Leon steps up to volunteer, he looks straight at Marie and can tell that Marie has also been reincarnated into this world. Even with the 5 other nobles fighting for her, Leon is still confident that he will be able to defeat them all with his ultimate game knowledge. After a little talk, the battle method is decided to be an armored duel at the battle arena. At first, the nobles think that Leon is just a naive idiot, but they are very shocked to find out that he plans to fight them all on his own. Later that day, Marie sits angrily on her bed because Leon has just ruined all the plans that she has laid out. However, she doesn't panic that much because she doesn't think that Leon stands a chance against the 5 nobles. The rest of the students feel the same way because 99% of them had bet against him in the duel polling. But even with that, he is still determined to emerge victorious. A couple of hours before the battle, Leon meets up with Angelica, who hears that the other students have vandalized his room. She doesn't want him to have to suffer for her sake, so she tells him to forfeit the duel. However, Leon explains that he isn't doing this for her sake, but rather because he wants to beat the crap out of guys who got all the girls. Angelica can tell that there's no stopping him, so she has no choice but to go through with. It is now the day of the duel, and Leon arrives with his giant robot armor, which is known to be very outdated, so it makes the audience burst into laughter. Then the following moment, Leon hops into his armor robot named Arrogance, and starts to face his first opponent, Brad. With Leon's game knowledge, he knows that Brad is a narcissist who is skilled in magic, so he has prepared the perfect strategy to go against him. Just as the battle starts, Leon orders Luxion to unleash the blade he will be using to fight, but to his surprise, a shovel is unveiled instead. Leon thinks back and recalls that he had used the armor to dig holes for the construction of his barony home, so he just forgot to swap the slot back with the sword. Even though Leon blames Luxion for this, there is no other blade for him available. So he figures that he would be able to use the shovel for the full duration of the duel. Everyone who watches this starts to laugh at Leon because they don't think that he stands a chance. All except for the prince, who can sense that Leon has something secret up his sleeve. Shortly after the match begins and Brad attempts to take Leon down with a single blow, but despite the bulky nature of land armor, Leon is still able to use it to easily dodge Brad's attack and finish him off with a direct shovel attack. Brad falls to the ground and the referees come over to confirm his condition, after which Leon has declared the winner of this round. The crowd observes this and all remain in disbelief because they never expected Brad to lose. Leon himself is shocked as to how he defeated Brad because the attack he landed didn't even have any power behind it. Still, Luxion explains that Brad is just so weak that he would have died if Leon struck him with full power. Meanwhile, Angelica sits on the sidelines and starts to wonder why Leon chose to side with her if he knows he's this strong. The next opponent is a red-haired noble named Greg, whom the audience is confident will be able to defeat Leon and his giant armor. Judging by the numerous damage repairs Greg's armor has on its body, Leon and Luxion can tell that he is very strong and also has a lot of combat experience with armor. Their battle begins and Greg starts by launching a flurry of attacks at Leon, causing him to assume a defensive position. Leon is aware of this tactic of Greg, so he knows the exact way to beat him. Following this, Leon launches a swift overhead attack which causes Greg to fall to the ground, after which he takes it a step further by ripping the limbs of Greg's armor off. Olivia watches this and gets frightened by it, but Angelica informs her that Greg's actual body isn't affected by it. Now that Greg has been defeated, he proceeds to lose more aura by coming out of his armor and starting to weakly attack Leon's foot. Then after a little while, Leon is declared the winner. The next opponent is a blue-haired noble named Chris. Chris gets into his armor and informs Leon that he's going to underestimate him like his colleagues had. So he says that he's going to fight at full strength right from the beginning. Leon is aware of Chris's fighting style being that he only makes use of swords and nothing else, meaning that he has no way to attack long range. During their battle, Leon takes advantage of this by distancing himself and then using some drones to shoot at Chris's armor, which is technically not as the rules. Then when the time is right, he reaches forward and breaks Chris's sword, which spells out defeat for him. Upon his victory, they all decide to take a little break before getting to the next battle, and it's during this time that one of the other nobles, named Jilk, orders Leon's sister Jenna to rake his armor with explosives. After Leon returns from his bathroom break, Luxion informs him that the armor has been rigged with explosives. Leon isn't surprised by this because this is exactly how the story of the game went, and at the same time the explosives that were used aren't even able to damage his armor in the first place. A couple of minutes later, his battle with Jilk begins with him jumping up into the air and triggering the explosives on the armor. At this point, Jilk thinks that he has succeeded, but to his surprise, Leon's armor appears to be unaffected by the explosive as he floats in the air. Then after some light dialogue, Leon strikes Jilk down with a single attack. With all the other nobles failing, the prince has no choice but to suit up and face Leon in an epic battle. Before they start fighting, Luxion informs Leon that the prince's armor is remarkably stronger than the others he has faced with so far. Leon hears this and understands that all he needs to do is land some swift attacks while being cautious, of course. During their battle, Leon starts a conversation with the prince about how much Angelica loves him with the hope that he will come back to his senses and forget Marie. However, Prince Julius openly says that he doesn't love Angelica anymore because she doesn't understand how he feels. He also adds that he didn't wish to be born into royalty, but Marie was the only one who noticed his feelings. Angelica breaks down to tears as she hears this because she loves the prince so much, but he doesn't feel the same in way. Prince Julius's main reason for dumping Angelica is because she only sees him as the prince and nothing more, whereas Marie sees him for who he truly is, which is considered to be true love. Owing to the immense love he has for Marie, Prince Julius doesn't plan on ending the duel until one of them is dead. Meanwhile, Leon is enjoying every bit of playing the villain of the story. His main motive for doing this is because he knows Prince Julius will rule the country one day, so he can't afford to jeopardize that by letting Marie fool him. The battle resumes and Leon wants to end it quickly, so he goes full power and creates a large explosion which destroys Julie's armor, causing him to fall to the ground. After this, Leon gets down for his armor and goes over to meet Angelica and Olivia to inform them that he didn't kill the prince, but rather just left him unconscious. Now the standing Angelica appreciates Leon for helping with all this and also says that she's going to thank him properly later. At the same time, Olivia informs him that because he has defeated the prince, he has now become public enemy number 1, meaning that everyone hates him. However, Leon doesn't care about that because he plans on leaving the academy anyway. A couple of hours later, Angelica goes to see the prince while he's recovering in bed to see if she will be able to ignite a spark with him. But unfortunately, the prince is still madly in love with Marie. Angelica hears this and understands that Marie is the only one the prince can love. She says a sad look on her face and leaves while wishing him and have a happy life. As a consequence of battling with the prince, Angelica's father has declined Leon, the barony that was being offered to him, and also relinquished his title as knight, on the condition that his family will not be held responsible, of course. Vince has a final request. He wants Angelica to spend the holiday in Leon's countryside for a little change of pace since this entire incident diminished her morale, all to which Leon agrees. Meanwhile, back at Leon's home, Zola seemed to be still maltreating Leon's father, but just then, Angelica arrives and informs Zola that she's going to stay at their home for the holiday. At first, Zola looks down on her but immediately fixes her attitude the moment she hears that she is from the Redgrave family. A little while later, Angelica and Olivia explore Leon Island and are impressed by all the cool things it has. After the girls take a soothing bath, they get into the robes and sit in the lobby while having some light conversation. Leon then walks in and Angelica tells him that he wants to get her revenge on the nobles, but Leon gives her some quality advice by telling her that it's not worth it to spend so much time trying to make someone unhappy. He believes that they should spend their time trying to become happier. Olivia hears this and supports this idea, so she and Angelica join hands to celebrate while Leon looks at them. So at this point, they are now all considered to be friends. Meanwhile, at the academy, the nobles walk into Marie's room to announce that they all have been disinherited of their wealth and social statuses. But they are not sad about it because they feel it's an opportunity for them all to have a proper relationship with her. Marie hears this and holds her head in disbelief because she did all this so that she would be able to enjoy the perks of them being a member of the royal family. Simultaneously, the royal informant has another meeting with Leon later that afternoon to announce that rather than being stripped of his baron title, he has now promoted to be a knight of the upper 6th rank. Being appointed as a knight at such a young age in this kingdom is a very rare feat, so now that Leon has been made a knight and also receives royal recognition, this means he can't leave and would have to continue his studies at the academy. The school festival is now around the corner, so Leon, Daniel, and Raymond begin setting up a cafe room which would be used so they can make some extra money off the students. Just then Olivia and Angelica walk into the room dressed in a nice maid's outfit, which makes Leon cry tears of joy at what a beautiful sight is to see. At this point, Leon is slowly starting to develop feelings for Olivia, but unfortunately for him, he's a mob character so he isn't allowed to have any romantic relationship with her. Just then, they all hear some noise coming from the corridor, so they step out of the cafe room to see what's going on. They arrived at the corridor to find out that the prince and other nobles are setting up their competing cafe right next to Leon's cafe. Even though the prince cafe is overpriced, he still has a squad of students who are dying to spend their money there. Shortly after, Prince Julius notices Leon, so he walks over to inform him that even though they both run competing cafes, he is still welcome to his anytime. Leon and his crew honor Julius' invitation, so they get to his cafe and discover that it has more of a bar setting than that of a cafe. Apparently this bar cafe was all Marie's idea. She appears and informs Leon that she and the nobles are going to win by being the most popular and busiest cafe in the entire school. It's now the day of the festival, so Leon radies his crew and tells them to do their best at the cafe and also enjoy the festival at the same time. After that, the school secretary comes in to call Angelica out because the executive committee wants to have a word with her. She's then seen walking around the festival with Lady Mylene, who is the queen of the Holfort Kingdom and also Prince Julius's mother. Mylene recalls that Angelica is greatly indebted to her, so she asked her to set up a meeting with Leon because she has been wanting to see him ever since the battle incident with the prince. Meanwhile, Olivia and Leon look out the window to see a huge line for Prince Julius' cafe while they haven't had a single customer all morning. Just then, the daughter of a popular count and her friends arrive at Leon Cafe as a customer, so they are welcomed warmly. Meanwhile, Lady Mylene has Angelica bring her to Leon's cafe just so that she can cause some slight trouble for him because of what he did to her son. She then enters the cafe and is shocked to see the count's daughter treating him like trash and even stepping on his head. Angelica is pissed off by this dreadful attitude, so she grabs her by the collar and then shoves her to the side while asking her to leave. However, she doesn't listen to a word Angelica has said, so she just continues to insult Angelica and Olivia. Lady Mylene attempts to break things up, but the count's daughter insults her as well because she's undercover, so she doesn't recognize her to be a queen of Holfort. Then all of a sudden, Leon goes crazy and starts to beat up all the count's daughter's bodyguards, after which she goes in front of Mylene and informs her that this lady her insulted not long ago is the queen of Holfort. The girl hears this and knows that she is messed up because even though her father's a count, there's no way she's getting away with picking a fight with the queen. Angelica can tell that Leon is out of control, so she has no choice but to call his favorite teacher to calm him down. After that, Leon sits down with the queen to have a conversation about the battle that transpired between him and her son. During the conversation, Leon loses his train of thought and starts to realize that Queen Mylene is very pretty for someone in her 30s. So without any hesitation, he holds her hands while asking her to marry him. Olivia and Angelica see this to be totally absurd because she's a queen while he is just a simple knight. Then as they continue to hold hands, a prince comes up behind Leon and punches him away for trying to rizz up his mother. After which he walks her out of Leon's cafe. Julius takes her to his cafe where she looks around and is furious about the way things are being run over there. Once she hears that it was all Marie's doing, she instantly demands to have a word with her. Marie is then seen hiding behind a curtain and also standing in front because she now knows that she is messed up by charging people that much for tea and also letting former distinguished nobles be the waiters. Meanwhile, a blue-haired girl named Carla who Olivia met a couple of days ago walks into the room and introduces herself to Leon, after which she goes down on one knee while asking him to save her family. A couple of hours after this, Leon sits on his bed while he decides that he's going to Carla to save her family. Luxion is very surprised that he's going to do so. He reminds him that he has no obligation to do it. Leon is aware of this, but he just decides to help Carla as a way to pass the times, since he has several days off after the school festival. At the same time, since Olivia acted as an intermediary if he refused to help her, Olivia loses all her aura. During this break from the school festival, it's now time for the annual competitive bike race to take place. Olivia and Angelica come down to see a large group of people obsessing about a competitive bike race. Olivia takes a look at the poster on the noseboard and is confused about what that is. Angelica then explains that it's simply a bike race that takes place every year that all the students are usually excited about. At first they think that Leon would be interested in participating, but they later realize that he would just prefer betting on it. At the same time, Marie's seen him on the crowd and acknowledges that Jilk will be participating in the race. So if he manages to win, it will get a significant amount of the prize money. On the day of the race, Olivia and Angelica walk in to see Leon sitting in the lobby and also laughing maniacally because he has thoughts of all the money he's about to make by betting on the race. He did his research and discovered that Jilk is the best racer in the entire school, so he has bet all his money on him. Shortly after the race begins and Jilk easily dominates it with ease, but at a certain point the other racers start to gain up on him by using their bikes to bump into him. But even with that, Jilk maneuvers by performing an impressive loop and then wins the race. Leon observes and has a smile on his because he has just doubled his net worth by winning the bet. Then all of a sudden Jilk exists on his bike and is seen to be experiencing some severe pain. Angelica looks at him and assumes it's because of all those hits he took while the other racers were attacking him. A couple of hours later, Jilk lies in bed suffering from a broken bone, meaning that he can't continue the next round of the race. But since there aren't any other first-year racers, they would have to find a substitute to represent the freshmen. Just then Jilk's ex-fiancée Claire's walks in and admits that she's the one behind Jilk's injury, since Jilk can jump her a little while before they got married. Claire's mountain never stopped getting revenge on him until she felt like it. Seeing that Marie is now the one who loves even threatens to harm her, but Marie has a very innocent look on her face while telling her that revenge is not the answer. Leon hears this and realizes that Marie acts exactly like his little sister from his previous world. After Clarice leaves, Marie's upset that she can't win the prize money since Jilk is injured, so she asks Leon to race in his place. She doesn't want people to know that she's only in it for the money, so she reminds Angelica that as a member of the executive committee, she would be trouble if she cannot find a replacement for Jilk. Even with that, Angelica knows that she has caused Leon so much trouble in the past, so she tells him that he doesn't have to race if he doesn't want to. However, Leon recalls that he owes Angelica's father a huge favor, so he has no choice but to agree to become the Year 1 racer. After Leon suits up and gets ready for the race, he runs into the best racer in the school named Dan, who is one of Clara's followers. Dan comes over to Leon to let him know that he's going to do everything in his power to make sure that he crushes him during the race since he's replacing Jilk. Leon hears this and first assumes that this was an order from Clarice, but Dan explains that Clarice and Jilk used to have a perfect relationship, with Clarice doing her very best to support him in whatever he did. But then all of a sudden, Jilk called off his engagement with Clarice by sending her a letter, and after that, he wasn't even kind enough to meet her in person. Dan found that attitude to be disgusting, which is why he has held a grudge against Jilk ever since that day. However, Leon doesn't care about that in the slightest because he bet more of his money on himself, so he is determined to come out on top no matter what. About 30 minutes later, the race begins and Leon immediately gets surrounded by all the racers who hold grudges against him. They start by bumping into him, just like they did to Jilk, with the hope that he would hurt himself, but unlike Jilk, Leon can escape without any injury. Meanwhile, the Count's daughter returns and comes up to Olivia and Angelica to stir up some more trouble. The Count's daughter informs Olivia that she used to consider non-royals as pieces of trash, which Olivia hears, so she runs off while crying eyes out, although Angelica feels bad about it. She knows that it would be hypocritical of her to run after Olivia because it's true that she did have that mindset. Back in the race, Leon's bike has stopped abruptly, which makes all the racers and the audience think that he's out of the race. But since Luxion had modified his bike, he then raced past all the other competitors at full speed and ended up winning the race, which the crowd was not in any way happy about. After he wins, his bike unfortunately reaches its limit, so it explodes, making him fall to his doom, but right before he can hit the ground, he is unexpectedly caught by Dan, who has now gained respect for him. Now that Leon has completed his side of the deal, Jilk is indebted to him, so Leon asked him to apologize to Claire physically for canceling their engagement so abruptly. Then later that night, Carla walks into Olivia's room and mentions that she wants to have a word with her. Olivia finds this to be perfect timing because she has been meaning to tell Carla that she has changed her mind and doesn't want to get Leon involved in her business. Just then, the Count's daughter emerges from the shadows and gives an intimidating look while forcing Olivia to ensure that Leon helps Carla. A squad of sky pirates has been rampaging through Carla's land, so she wants Leon to take care of them because of his prior achievements. Normally Leon would have told the royal palace to handle it, but he knows that those sky pirates have an item that is essential to Olivia, the protagonist. Olivia needs 3 magical items to be united to awaken her powers as a saint, which are the Holy Bracelet, Holy Staff, and Holy Necklace. However, Leon is already aware that the Count's daughter is the one behind Carla's request, and at the same time the same Count's daughter who lured the sky pirates to that area, just so that Olivia gets dragged into the fabricated sky crisis. Her main motive for doing this is because she is jealous of Olivia, and how she has recently been establishing herself despite being a commoner. Even though Olivia is meant to resolve this issue on her own, Leon wants to do it because he's grown to become a little overprotective. However, Luxion feels that Leon is robbing Olivia of her opportunities to grow. Leon goes outside and is about to go into the amazing ship that Luxion had built, but he then runs into Carla and Olivia, who inform him that 2 of the prince nobles would accompany them. Meanwhile, as Leon and the others continue their journey, they run into an enemy airship that Carla has sent. The captain looks down at Leon's airship and thinks it to be pretty cool, so he orders his men to go down there to steal it, but to also leave Carla unharmed because she's on their side. Greg and Brad have never been in a real battle before, so they don't know what to do. As the enemies have arrived, Leon can tell that they're inexperienced in real battles, so he just tells them to wait in the ship while he goes on to fight. Leon stands outside in his armor and waits for the enemy to arrive. Then the captain of the enemy ship looks at his armor and observes that's quite outdated, so he feels that this would be an easy job. Before the battle starts, Leon takes a look at his game handbook and recalls that the enemies facing them are known as winged sharks, which operate on very low-level technologies, so Leon knows that this would be an easy task for him. The battle begins and Leon easily destroys the enemy winged sharks, which shocks the captain entirely. Greg and Brad observe his refined technique and now understand that they are no match for him in a fight because he has real battle experience unlike them. After he destroys their defense, the captain realizes that he has been defeated, so they have no choice but to surrender. After that, he ties them all up and sits them down on the front of the ship. Meanwhile, Carla sits alone in the lobby and is pissed off at the fact that the captain has failed to defeat Leon, so have no time to waste. She starts to think of a new scheme. Shortly after they arrive at Carla's hometown to meet her father, who informs them all that their land isn't being attacked by sky pirates as Carla had previously said. She then tries to pin on Olivia, but Leon can tell that she has nothing to do with this. Carla then falls to the ground and starts to cry, after which she confesses that it was the Count's daughter Stephanie who put her up it. Now that this is done, Leon goes over to Olivia's room to try and cheer her up, but to a surprise, Olivia starts to throw a tantrum because she doesn't understand why Leon has been so kind to her, even though she's a mere commoner. After this unexpected encounter with Olivia, Leon goes to the edge of the ship and stares into the sky. While he wonders what could have warranted Olivia act in such way, Luxion believes that she probably feels dejected because she had such intense malice directed at her by most of the girls at the academy. So he tells Leon not to worry about it that much. However, Leon has a heart made of glass, so he can't do anything but worry about her. Any case, Luxion lets Leo know that he believes he's the cause preventing Olivia's mental growth. Leon hears this and doesn't agree with that, rather he thinks that he has helped her in many ways, but in reality Leon being too overprotective of her is exactly what is preventing her growths. Luxion starts to say some rude things about Olivia, so Leon punches him, but it doesn't have any effect on Luxion since he's a robot. Just then, Brad walks past Leon and is seen to be practicing his swordsmanship. Leon sees this and finds it quite strange because he's aware that Brad is known to excel mainly in magic. With that being true, Brad then tells him that he's now practicing his swordsmanship so that he would be able to defeat Leon someday, and also because he feels he has been overshadowed by the rest of the nobles for way too long. Amidst their dispute, a robot flies in holding two sparring swords, suggesting that Leon and Brad had a little battle to settle their differences. Leon doesn't expect Brad to accept this duel because it's very obvious that he would smoke him in a sword fight. But to his surprise, Brad picks the sword and accepts the challenge. Shortly after their battle begins and Leon easily overpowers Brad, causing his sword to fly out of his hand. After this is done, Brad admits his defeat and vows to beat Leon in their next battle. Meanwhile, at the kingdoms, Prince Julius and Noble Jilk want to join the others on their sky pirate escapade, but Queen Mylene has ordered them to stay behind. At a certain point, they get the idea of using cloaks and masks as disguises to leave the kingdom, but they don't have any money to buy them, so all they need is to get the budget approved by the queen. The queen is asked to review the budget and she can tell what they are planning, so she disapproves the budget, making them drop their jaws. While Leon is having breakfast with Greg and Brad, he makes the decision of still going to attack the Sky Pirates because he believes this would be an opportunity for him to obtain the Holy Necklace. Just then, Luxion informs him that the pirates have started to approach his ship. Greg and Brad hear this and tell Leon that they want to help in the fight, but Leon at first disagrees. The two of them then humble themselves by bowing their heads to him, so Leon has a change of heart and lets them fight with him. Meanwhile, Olivia sits in a depressed mood in her room until she hears some missile shots coming from outside. She looks out the window to see Leon's armor getting attacked, so she immediately rushes out because she wants to help. But before she can get hurt, Brad and Greg arrive just on time and are able to protect Olivia from getting hurt by the pirate captain. Leon observes that Olivia is being protected by the two nobles, which makes him realize that this is how things are meant to be with her being the protagonist. He doesn't need to be by her side. Rather, she is meant to end up with one of the popular love interests. But with that being said, even though he's a mob character, he knows that he still has a role to play, so if he rushes over to assist Greg and Brad just as they are about to defeat it, Leon attacks the pirate captain, which causes his armor to fall down, making him out of his armor right before it's crushed by Leon. At the same time, Leon spots the holy necklace lying on the floor, so he claims it, putting Olivia one step closer to unlocking her true power. After this, he goes back to the ship and claims the treasure he found with the pirates. At the same time, Luxion has also been able to uncover some documents linking Stephanie to this entire Sky Pirate scandal. Meanwhile, Greg and Brad go back to the castle to discover that Leon had given them all the credit for defeating the pirates, and because of that, they have been granted a great reward for it. Greg and Brad plan on returning the favor, so they talk to some higher-ups and have Leon promoted to the lower 5th rank, which is 2 ranks higher than his father. As regards to a school trip event, every year all 3 grades go on a field trip together, after which the students are split into 3 groups. In the game, the objective was to head to the same destination as your romantic interest, where you get to improve your relationship score. At the same time, there are specific items that can only be acquired at the destination you choose, so Leon decides to go for the southern floating island. He would be embarking on this journey alone because Olivia and Angelica are very angry at him and he doesn't want to apologize. Later that evening, Leon is on the luxury passenger ship which takes all the students to their chosen destination. While he's there, he acknowledges that he needs to put in some effort if he wants to get married, so he plans to make some advances at some of the girls there, but unfortunately Noble Chris has stolen all the girls' attention. While everyone is in the main area, 2 girls are seen standing by the back window and are heard saying that they have chosen to forsake the Duke's family since they have no more power because the prince called off his engagement. Then after this they throw a smoke signal out the window. About an hour later, the students arrive at the southern floating island, which is a beautiful area possessing Japanese culture. Out of coincidence, Leon and Olivia and Angelica run into each other while they're at the popular shrine dedicated to marriage. The little traditional girl comes up to them and suggests they give the marriage shrine a try because it is proven to work on several occasions. Leon isn't surprised to hear this because he recognizes this to be the event where Olivia, the protagonist, and her love interest meet at the shrine. After giving a slight offering to the marriage gods, they all pray for the kind of person they wish to marry. Now before they leave, the little girl offers them some marriage charms, which Leon grabs right out of her hands because they are the exact items he has been looking for. He wanted to get these charms so badly that he pulled some strings at the admin office to make sure that he would end up at the southern island for the school trip. The next day after leaving there, Leon stands on the balcony of his airship and then starts to see a large wave of fish monsters flying towards them. Although he recognizes this monster species from the game, this event is not expected to happen until the end of the game, so he is confused as to why it's happening so early. A large cloud is then cleared for them all to see Princess Hertrude there, the first princess of the Phanis dukedom who stands in a mighty monster ship. Princess Hertrude then declares war on the Holfort Kingdom, which shocks Leon because this is an event that's supposed to take place 2 years from now. Her monster ship arrives and the captain plans on taking all the nobles hostage. However, since Angelica is among one of the highest ranking, she sacrifices herself to be only hostage while the rest are to be left alone. Leon tries to stop her before she goes, but the other students stop him and then start to beat him up because they're happy that Angelica has sacrificed herself. After this, Leon holds a meeting among the students and informs them that in order to win this war they will all need to fight the enemy because it's better to die fighting than get killed lying down. A blonde noble named Deirdre comes forward and tells Leon that he's out of his mind, telling them all to fight to their death. To respond to that, she gives them a speech on how their forefathers fought the same way for them, which lifts their spirits and makes them ready to fight. A little while after this agreement, Leon hops on his air bike and starts the war off along with the other student. The battle has held for a while, and Luxion is impressed by how well the male students are holding their ground against the monsters because he first assumes that they would straggle. However, Leon isn't surprised at all because he knows most of the male students of the academy train all the time so that girls would like them. As Angelica remains on Princess Hertrude's ship, she looks out the window to see Leon approaching her on his air bike. She considers this to be a foolish move by him because she initially hoped that he would flee along with the other students. Princess Hertrude sees this he is coming, so she plays her magic flute, which gives the monsters an extra boost of strength. However, Captain Garrett tells her that isn't going to be necessary because once the students are within the range of their cannons, he's going to ambush every single one of them, including the flying monster. The cannons are then pointed at the academy at shoot. The students see the shots coming and start to accept their fate, but just before the shots can hit, Olivia unlocks her hidden sync power, which allows her to put a strong protective barrier around the academy. Leon watches this happen and is proud of Olivia for finally reaching her true potential. At the same time, he acknowledges that this magical display from Olivia has provided him the opportunity to fly into the monster ship without any harm. Then all of a sudden, Leon and his air bike emerged from the ground to smack Captain Garrett across the face. He then retrieves Angelica from their custody and also takes Princess Hertrude's magic flute. Leon then gets an idea, so he takes her along with him as a hostage, but before they leave, Luxion shaves Captain Garrett's mustache permanently off. Shortly after, they arrive back at the Academy airship and are about to retrieve, but then Captain Garrett decides to launch an all-out attack on the Academy, even though Princess Hertrude is there. Leon knows this is bad because if the battle continues, even though Olivia has expended too much energy, she will still try to protect the Academy, which could end up killing her. So in an attempt to find a solution, he hops on his bike and drives straight the monster airship. Meanwhile, Angelica is deep in thought about what she can do to help the situation. So at that instant, she unlocks and launches a very powerful magic spell known as a fire lance, which can easily deal damage to the enemy. The Academy is then hit with a cannonball, which makes Angelica fall off the ship and hang by a single hand. At this point, she doesn't think that she can be saved, so she says her last prayer as she releases her grip. But before she falls, Olivia grabs her by the hand, which makes Angelica yell at her to let go because she thinks that she will fall along with her. Just then, another cannonball hits, so Olivia shifts her weight to save Angelica while she falls her doom. But before she can crash, Leon comes in his air bike to save her. Actually saves her, and as he holds her in his arms, Olivia confesses her feelings of love for Leon, which at first he doesn't accept because he's just a mob character. But Olivia tells him she doesn't care about his status and just wants to be with him because she loves him, to which Leon hears and finally agrees. He gets back up and calls his airship to launch a blast attack on the monster ship, after which he gets into his battle armor with hopes of ending this war once and for all. During their final battle, Leon is faced with a formidable enemy, which is known as Black Knight, a knight of principality who's been feared before any of them were born, and according to history, he single-handedly sank dozens of the kingdom's warships. As the battle goes on, Luxion informs Leon that this is all happening because he doesn't want to kill his enemies. The Black Knight proves to be a very formidable opponent because he's actually able to deal damage to Leon's armor, leaving a hole in its chest. After they have some separation, Leon asks the Black Knight why he's so determined to fight him, to which he simply replies, saying he does it because it's his duty. They both in charge of each other, but Leon falls for a classic cheap move which allows his armor to be stabbed straight through the chest. At this point, the Black Knight thinks that he has won, but to his surprise, Leon comes out of it to point a gun straight at the Black Knight, forcing him to surrender. Then, as a last-ditch effort, the Black Knight sends a special signal flare which assembles all the monsters and gives the instruction to kill them all. However, Leon isn't bothered by this because he has already made arrangements for this case. Then in the next moment, several thin beams of light start to come out of the sky to destroy every single one of the monsters. At this point, the enemy has fully been defeated, so Leon urges the old man to retire because he has been beaten at his own game by a bunch of 16-year-old kids. After this, Captain Garrett is seen begging Leon for mercy after all he's done against him. But since he has a good heart, he decides to forgive him, but only on certain conditions, of course. A couple of days later, back at the academy, the nobles have spent a large amount of money on a suit that they believe will be able to defeat Leon. So they plan on challenging him to a duel at the school arena, but as expected on the day of the battle, Leon is easily able to destroy the armor with very little effort. Following that, Leon has an entire ceremony dedicated to him for being able to capture Princess Gertrude. As the ceremony goes on, Marie looks on and has an angry look on her face while she vows to assemble all the saint's sacred items so that she will fully become the protagonist. After the ceremony, Leon meets up with Olivia, who lets him know that she was serious when she told Leon that she was in love with him. Leon blushes at this but doesn't give an answer back. Now, with no further obstruction, the trio continue to live their normal lives and everything goes back to normal, with Leon being best friends with Olivia and Angelica despite being a mere mob character. Thanks for watching. Want more anime recaps? Subscribe the channels and turn on notification bell.